Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? We're taking a tour this week around the NFC South, checking in with each training camp. Yesterday was Atlanta. Today we head down to Tampa. Kenny Morales, WFLA, good enough to join us for a couple minutes, talk Bucks. How are you, man?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Is the expectation in Tampa that they win the division again?
Yeah, I would say it's past that.
Okay.
The Bucks social team put out a cool video the day before training camp where Todd Bowles was addressing the team, and he said, straightforward, listen, we don't want just another division title. We want to go back to the Super Bowl. And, obviously that's the outsiders, and I think a lot of, Bucks fans too would say that's pretty lofty goals. But look, they like what they brought back. They were really impressed with what Baker Mayfield was able to do last year, able to revitalize his career. And they were really happy with all the pieces they brought back, right? Getting a guy like Mike Evans today, re-signing, Antoine Winfield Jr. They just extended Tristan Wirfs, made him the highest paid offensive lineman. So they've definitely got some good pieces. I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender in my eyes, but I think they're definitely a playoff team for sure.
You mentioned Evans. What other playmakers are there in Tampa? Because it feels like there's been some turnover.
Yeah, no, definitely. So at least, pass catcher-wise, you still got Chris Godwin there. And, touchdowns-wise, he really didn't impress last year. I think he only had 2, which is pretty low for him. He's a tremendous wideout. They're going to move him back into the slot this year quite a bit. They got the new offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen. So I imagine you can probably see a little more production out of him. And then a guy that's really been flashing for them in training camp has been Jalen McMillan, the rookie wideout from Washington. I know, Roma Dunze, another guy, his old teammate, kind of stole a lot of the headlines there. But this kid, he's been the real deal. A great route runner, fantastic hands. I mean, I don't think we've heard from a player or Bulls that haven't spoken glowingly about him. And, he said the other day that his number one goal in training camp was to get Baker Mayfield to trust him. And we heard from Baker recently. He's like, yeah, he's doing everything right to earn that trust for sure.
You also mentioned Liam Cohen, which is interesting. I think a lot of SEC fans would know Liam Cohen from his time in Kentucky, bounced to the NFL, back to Kentucky. Now he's back in the college game. In what ways materially might it be different there with Cohen?
Yeah, I think offensively it'll just bring the Bucks more into today's NFL. I know before that he was with the Rams. He's not the exact same kind of guy, but similar offense like Sean McVay. There's a lot of window dressing, a lot of bells and whistles, guys moving around, a lot of motion in the backfield, receivers moving around. I think you'll see a lot more of that. It seems like it's an offense that the Bucks really like. Anytime we talk to any of the pass catchers, especially the tight ends, that was a position last year that kind of went, by the wayside. Really didn't get a lot of guys involved. Cade Otton being their tight end number 1. They also got a guy from Washington, Devin Culp. The Bucks really like their Huskies for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But, those are, I think, even in that first preseason game, we saw the tight ends get a lot of action. And I think you'll see a little more of that. And hopefully a more robust run game, which, it can't get really any worse because they were dead last in the league last year. But I think with the, Rashad White now entering, I think, his second year as a full-time starter. They drafted Bucky Irving from Washington. I think he'll be a nice compliment to him. And then the biggest thing is the improvement of that interior offensive line. They got a center in Graham Barton, who's looked really good. If you haven't seen him, go check out some of the clips of him from that first preseason game. He was blocking 5, 10 yards, 15 yards down the field. And he's looked pretty solid in training camp. And then the guard position, Cody Mauch, he's back for a second year. It looks a little bit stronger, maybe, understands the offense a little bit more. And then the left guard, they had 2 guys battling for a starting spot there. Sua Opeta, who unfortunately went down for the year with a torn ACL. Now they got Ben Bredesen, who's a veteran dude. He played with the Giants for a couple of years. So I think with improvement there, you'll hopefully see an improved run game as well.
Kenny Morales is with us, WFLA there in Tampa, covers the Bucks. Man, someone asked me this earlier this week. I didn't have a great answer because I'm not on the Tampa beat. But what happened with Deon White?
That is a great question. I think you get a lot of different answers depending on who you ask. Unfortunately, I actually did not cover Deon White this past season. I wasn't working in TV at the time, but before that, I did get to cover his first couple of years with the Bucks. And if you asked a Bucks fan before last season, they'd tell you he's a heck of a player, which I would agree with. He was an incredible athlete. He was kind of, along with Levante David, the 2 top guys in that defense in terms of, being vocal leaders. And then, it just kind of went to the wayside, and things got a little, I don't know. You talk about him being a locker room cancer. He said he dealt with some injuries, didn't want to play. And certainly his play did take a downtick, I would say, this past season. He's an incredible athlete, but just sometimes, he'd get in the backfield and the play's 5 yards to the other side. And he's already, he's left in the dust, left to do nothing. And so, and then obviously the biggest thing was that he wanted to get paid. And we saw a lot, the Bucs certainly did that with a lot of guys this past offseason. But they did not do that with Deon White. And, I think a big reason why is because they really trust KJ Britt, a guy that kind of came in there when they decided to bench White. And he played pretty well. And from what we've heard from every guy on that defense, they love KJ Britt. This guy's a vocal leader, a dude that, great work ethic, and a damn good player as well. So I feel like it was probably best for both parties for White to go ahead and leave.
Kenny, are there... what are the questions now, almost 3 weeks into training camp that remain for Tampa?
Yeah, I think the two biggest would be, one, I kind of touched on it, that interior of the offensive line. Obviously, they've kind of restructured it. They got some new faces there. But what can they actually do under the lights? We really haven't seen any of them play other than, I believe, Barton played this past weekend. And I can't remember if Mount did or not. I don't believe Bredesen did. And then the other one on defense is the pass rush. This is a team that lost Shaq Barrett, who, signed with the Dolphins, but then, a couple weeks ago decided to retire, which kudos to him. He was a tremendous guy to cover, such a pro's pro. Happy for him and his family. But beyond that, their leading sack guy last year was Yaya Diaby, a rookie. And I'll tell you this, he is, if you've never seen Yaya Diaby, go Google a picture of him this second year. This dude is a freak of nature. He is absolutely jacked. He's just an incredible athlete. And I think he'll probably be right up there in terms of sacks again for the Bucs. But beyond that, you kind of have a lot of question marks. They drafted the kid Chris Braswell out of Alabama. He's looked solid so far in camp. Joe Tryon-Soyinka is a dude they drafted in the first round late a couple years ago with the hopes that he could be, a top-tier edge rusher, but he really hasn't panned out. He's been okay. I think he had like 5.5 sacks last year, but his third year, I think he's coming up on his last year of his contract, if I'm not mistaken. Beyond that, you don't really know who else there is in orders of guys that can actually pressure the quarterback. One guy to keep an eye on would be Vita Vea, which I know is kind of weird. Okay. You don't really typically see a lot of guys in the interior doing that, but Vita Vea has lost a significant amount of weight. I know he hasn't told us for whatever reason. He has not given us a number. But if you look at the pictures of Vita Vea in camp now compared to last year, it's pretty stark, the difference. I believe last year they listed him at like 347, but some Bucs folks said he played around 360 last year at times. And I would be surprised if he's not down to 320 or something. He's lost a significant amount of weight, and he looks quicker, which is obviously great news for the Bucs. And I think, he talked about it. He worked this past offseason with Ndamukong Suh, which he's done a couple of years, but he said this year in particular he wanted to lose some weight. He wanted to get in better shape. I think for two things. One, he wanted to be on the field more. With a body that big, you can get a little tired, and you have to come out for a couple plays. But also, to protect his body. He missed a couple games, last year, and I think the same thing the year before that. Now you don't have to have 360 pounds in those joints. Hopefully that'll help as the season goes along.
Last thing for you, Kenny. Obligatory Baker Mayfield question. Was last year a fluke? Can he build upon it? That's, I think, what everybody wants to know about Baker Mayfield. What say you through 3 weeks of camp?
Yeah, that's kind of the big question everyone has is, can he do it again? Because he really hasn't throughout his career so far, right? He had one solid year in Cleveland, and then he was able to do one solid season here, but can he make it two in a row? I think he can. I think so far we've seen in training camp, he's looked very crisp. The chemistry with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is evident. I'm just curious to see what he looks like in Liam Cohen's offense. It's an offense that he's going to have a lot of responsibility with. Like, he's going to make a lot of calls, a lot of audibles at the line. It's basically up to him. He's running the show. And I think that's a big reason why the Bucs went out and got Liam Cohen, is the fact that those two have a familiarity with each other. For those who don't know, Baker, when he went and had that cup of coffee with the LA Rams and won a game, essentially, joined the team, I think, only 3 days before, Liam Cohen was the OC,
Yeah,
and so
point.
they've got a good relationship there. He has a lot of confidence. Liam Cohen does in Baker Mayfield. It might take some time. It did last year, and if you remember correctly, Dave Canales is now the head coach of the Panthers. It took the Bucs, I would say, about maybe mid-season to kind of get into the rhythm of things in terms of their offense. You might see the same thing here with Cohen's offense, but I got to say, just from what we've seen so far, the offense is legit, especially with Baker Mayfield running it. And I think the nice thing is with Cohen's offense with Baker, he's not having him do too much that he's not comfortable with. He's basically looking at Baker and saying, hey, look, we know this is what you're good at, so we'll go ahead and put you in the right spots to succeed, right? You're not trying to put a square peg through a round hole. Because Baker, he's a good quarterback, but he obviously has his flaws. He's not elite. He's not Patrick Mahomes. But when put in a good situation, we've seen that he can succeed, and I think we'll see him do that again this year.
Tampa has won the division 3 consecutive years. Can they make it 4 in a row and build upon that? We'll find out. Kenny Morales, WFLA there in Tampa. We appreciate it, man. Thanks for some time.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.